I'm going to begin with a question I always want to ask at every junket, but it's never got the right context, but I can ask it here, which is, what was your relationship with Pooh growing up?
My relationship with Pooh was, my faint memory was more about the shepherd's drawings than the stories. And I always loved those drawings. They had sort of emotional reaction, but I didn't really sort of like lost sight of him, and I rediscovered him like sort of 15 years ago when I read the Tower of Pooh, where Benjamin Hoffman, the author, said, "Oh, in the East they have Lao Tse, in the West we have Pooh." But and then I rediscovered it really with my daughter, her watching the cartoons and me reading the stories. So
I had the books, as most kids seem to, especially where I was from. And then I had the audiobooks on cassette, which I used to listen to when I was in bed and as a kid. And my aunt had Kanga, so it was all kind of part of our family, part of childhood culture, as it is for many people in the UK. And now from doing this film, I realise globally.
Pooh has this quite sort of wonderful, blissful outlook on life. As someone who has voiced him on many occasions, do you think that kind of the way he views the world has rubbed off on you at all? Because I feel it's like quite an infectious kind of personality he's got.
I hope so. I always say that he looks at the world through honey-colored glasses, and I think we could all use a little of that these days. So I'll take it.
Have you got a favourite Pooh quote? Because they're sort of like, they're sort of quite profound in some ways, aren't they? Some of the stuff he says.
Yes, please pass the honey. That's pretty much it. That's it. Yeah.
I like the people say nothing is impossible, but I do nothing all the time.
And so true.
Yeah.
I've been known to do it myself.
Because what this film does so well is it sort of blends reality with fantasy, and we sort of totally buy into it. I think because when I wasn't sure if they were going to be a figment of Chris Robin's imagination, but they're actually in this world. They're completely real. Was that quite a difficult sort of balance and tone to get right, to ensure that we could just completely suspend our disbelief and believe in them as being real creatures?
Yeah, that sort of was the idea. I wanted people to suspend their belief and feel that they're real. And even in the animation, that you at one point you forget they're like literally stuffed animals, and that they're just like, you take them as characters that live and breathe in our world. And that's why I shot it with a lot of close-ups to feel that connection.
So what do you think it is about this world and these characters that are just so universal and so timeless?
I think it starts from the writing of A.A. Milne. Obviously, his ability to create these characters through the eyes of Christopher Robin, and create these kind of profound witticisms that are also very endearing and have a naive, childish quality to them. That's where the magic began, and I think this film still keeps those characters very much in the same spirit.
Did you get to spend much time on set and meet any of the actors, or was this all kind of done in isolation, like voice acting often is?
Oh, yeah. We recorded it first, and that way they had something to act and react to from, on set. And then Ewan and Hayley, Bronte, they all had, the puppeteers were on set, and the voices were playing for them to hear and react to. And then they had to focus on these little, clay dummies, which had to have been tough, but I think it's pretty seamless in the end.
I just love the look of them. I mean, they're sort of worn out, and because it's so easy to assume when you see kind of big animations that they're going to be very polished and very kind of modern looking, but there's something quite old and kind of sort of rusty about them, which I loved.
Yeah, I wanted them to be well worn, well hugged, well loved. That you felt like Christopher played with those animals and that they were used. I didn't want to have like new animals. I didn't want to have like new toys brand new off the shelf, that they felt like there's wear and tear to them.
So what did you give the actors to sort of work with here, especially the kids? I mean, it's one thing to ask kind of Ewan McGregor to pretend that he's talking to something that's not there, because he's been doing this for years. I mean, he was in Star Wars, I'm sure he had to do that loads of times. But for the kids specifically, was that quite difficult to have to try and get them to be placed in that sort of situation?
I mean, it was extraordinary with Bronte, who plays actually with all four characters, and on a tennis court, and in the train compartment. And it was extraordinary because we had them there, and I blocked the scene for Bronte with the actors. And then we started shooting it, and there was nothing there. She was acting thin air, and she really was able to deliver the lines and be so focused and do a performance. It was extraordinary.
Have you got a favourite of the characters? Is there anyone in particular that you love the most?
I mean, I love Pooh the most, but all of them are pretty great. I mean, Eeyore and Piglet are pretty fantastic, and Tigger as well, and so is Roo and Kanga.
Who's your favourite of the characters?
I like Pooh. I mean, he's like the Zen master, really. Everything and everyone orbits around him.
I was like asking questions where the answer is I like Pooh. And obviously, this is blending reality with fantasy in a sense. Because before I saw it, I wasn't quite sure how it was going to work, but they're actually real within the movie. I mean, when you sort of first sort of got involved in this, were you ever worried about how it would all kind of come together? But I mean, we totally buy into it. But I guess the idea of it could work one of two ways, I suppose.
I suppose no, there was no worry. I mean, especially when we saw the storyboard, but also the earlier work on the art department. Like they're an incredible team. So I felt privileged to be a part of something that I thought looked so beautiful and so true to the spirit of what these stories were about and are about. So and then when I heard Jim Cummings was involved and was going to be doing the voice, it was just, I knew it would look and sound as it should.
I mean, did you relate to the themes as well? I think it certainly did for me. I mean, it's so easy to get so caught up in work and things like bills and money and stuff like that. I think we do often forget about the sort of more pure, quite important things in our life, I suppose.
No, I agree. And, if it could happen to Christopher Robin, it could happen to anybody. But good news, we after him saving us for so many times, and by us I mean Eeyore and Owl and the gang, I think it was our turn, and I think we do a pretty good job. You'll have to see the movie.
Because I feel like these days, I mean, kind of work is almost 24/7 for so many people. We all kind of get home in the evening, we're still on our emails sort of all the time. But are you quite good at switching off? Are you one of those people that at the end of a day's work you can just go, right, I'm done for now?
Yes, I am. Yeah, and I don't even I love what I do for a living. It's the kind of thing I used to do for free anyway. So I never really think of it as work. So I don't have anything to switch off, but yet I still can. Because I like to barbecue and grill. So, somebody's got to do it.
So what do you think it is about this world and these characters that have such a universal, timeless appeal? Because, I mean, they're kind of loved. For me, it feels quite sort of quintessentially British, but they're loved all around the world.
The beautiful thing is that for me, Pooh's sweater is really about the heart, and that's what the movie is about. And I think, that everybody wishes they could have a friend like Pooh, like a teddy bear who's there when they need him. But at the same time, you have these great Poohisms, which are not just for kids, they're like childlike, but at the same time, they have so much wisdom and are for any kind of generation. That's why I made this movie for kids and grown-ups to find that balance.
Have you got a favourite one of his kind of profound statements? I think my favourite is people say nothing is impossible, but I do nothing all the time.
Yes, that's beautiful. One for me, it's one that's not in the movie. There's not a lot of great ones in the movie, but one of the great ones is for me is weeds are flowers too. Once you get to know them.
That's really good. So, what were you shooting in front of? Was it a sort of tennis ball on a stick type job?
We had different stages. So we had stuffed animals that very much looked like the animated version that you see, and then that was they were controlled by a group of actors who were voicing them off screen. So you'd be able to improv with them and have some sort of rapport with those actors through these stuffed animals. And then you had the headless versions, which were used for the visual department for kind of later post-production work, and then it was a rod with a light on it, and then nothing.
Because I love the look of them. They kind of look sort of worn out. Because often we see, you expect when you have a big animation, they might be all kind of shiny and new looking.
Veneers and designer clothing. No, they looked loved. They looked worn old toys, yeah.
You've obviously been involved in so many incredible kind of TV programs and films which have resonate. I mean, obviously, I grew up with so many of the things you've been in. Yeah. Is there any one character in particular that you voiced that you hold closest to your heart?
Well, I think Pooh and Tigger are tied in for first place. They're on their own shelf, aren't they? They're evergreens. And but from there, I in no particular order, Darkwing Duck has always been a favorite of mine. The terror that flaps in the night. And I have to say that Hondo Ohnaka from Star Wars, Clone Wars, he's way up there, one of my favorite pirates. As long as it is profitable, he's in. And I always love Ray from Princess and the Frog. Because, the women, they like a man with a big back pouch, that's for sure, yeah. And it was great. It harkened me back to my youth when I was a deckhand on a riverboat in New Orleans. And so, you pick up all these little things from life and recycle them. And I get to hang out with you now. Yeah.
And just finally, because obviously you've worked with Ewan McGregor before, you'll be working again in The Cow. Is that your next project? Is that the one you'll be working on? And if so, what sort of stage is that in development?
We're still developing the script a little further, but we're not sure yet. We're looking at schedules and stuff, but that's definitely something we'd like to do, yeah.
I mean, because obviously there's something about you and that keeps bringing you back. What is it about him as an actor that you think makes him such a great sort of collaborator?
I think he's just dramatically and comedically just a brilliant actor, and I find he is there's this empathy about him that you really just want to connect with him and want him to do well, and you want him to reconnect with his family, and you want him to find his inner child again.
And of course, I mean, you've played so many roles now across so many different eras, and I was wondering, is there one specifically you'd love to have gone back and visited?
Oh gosh, I tend to not think back on them. There are so many worlds I haven't visited that is more my pull, my interest. I'd like to explore new worlds, new genres, new characters, work with new filmmakers. That to me is the exciting thing, not going over old ground, I think. No matter how fantastic or amazing the job was at the time, I think it's part of my job is the hope is that I get lots of variety and lots of opportunities as I grow and change to develop different characters.
Because I mean, obviously you're doing a lot of stuff on stage. That must be so great. Because that feels like not to put down filmmaking so much, but it feels like a real sort of pure form of acting in a sense that obviously all in one go. It's live. It's very much of an immersive sort of experience. That must be a real great thing to keep going back to as an actor.
Yeah, I like being able to do both. I think helps the other. It's easier to see more of what filmmaking is when you're seeing a different side of the profession on stage, and vice versa. I think they complement each other. And it's hard, when you're doing 8 shows a week, and it's as soon as the curtain goes up, that's it. If you make a mistake, you can't go back on it. It's thrilling. It feels the most alive, and it's also, I think, as an actor, you get a sense of working very closely with an ensemble, and often if it's a play, then it's much more dependent on the quality of the writing, so I get the opportunity to work on amazing texts, which hopefully make me better because of the challenge that I have to, I have to rise to the occasion of it. So I love it, and I'm very lucky that I've been able to carve my own way through this industry that allows me to do all the things.
Are you able to remember every single voice for characters? If I just named, I'm not going to do this, don't worry, but obviously you've played so many that if someone just said to you, just name a character from something you did 20 years ago, can you instantly find that voice and do it? Or does it take a little while sometimes to remember what that voice was and what the character is?
Yes and no. It helps that we're schizophrenic, and we are too. So I got that little bonus in there. But the first time I ever did a Comic-Con, a convention, there was this group of young men that walked up to me, and they were very excited, and they go, "Come on, do the line." And I went, "Oh, bother? No, seriously, the line." So I gave him some Darkwing, and no, that, and I gave him some ticker. Turned out it was from a video game called Baldur's Gate, and I played one of the protagonists. His name was Minsk, and he was not unlike Lenny, the character from Mice and Men, but was Russian, and he had the little hamster. And it was called Boo. Go for the eyes, Boo. And they wanted me to say go for the. In 1,000 years, I would have been there, still guessing had they not told me. So, the answer is yes and no. I can't. It's apparently I've done a few of them, a few too many to remember them all right here. So no more minutiae. Okay.
And just finally, you're involved in Blinded by the Light, I believe. Obviously, I love the premise of it, a young boy sort of growing up in England in the 80s who becomes sort of inspired by the music of Bruce Springsteen.
Yeah.
But how does your character fit into that story and that world?
So I play Miss Clay in Blinded by the Light, and she is kind of his inspirational teacher. So she's the first person who really gives him the encouragement to pursue his writing and tell him that he's any good. And I think we'll like her because she's quite disillusioned and quite cynical with the world and about current politics and the fact that she's looking for students who might be different, and a lot of them don't really want to learn, but he stands out to her, so they have a special rapport together. I think there's a natural kind of charm to it, and I haven't seen the movie, but I think the script is fantastic, and it was very close to Gorinda's heart when she made it, so it was lovely to be a part of.
Brilliant. Thanks so much for the time.
Thank you.
Cool.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching Hey You Guys!
Hey You Guys, huh?
Hey, you guys.
Is that from the Goonies?
It is indeed, yeah.
Nice.
Hey, you guys!